All right, welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name's Chris. In front of you here is my 2015 Mazda 6. Needs to do an oil change. I've done a video on that. You can check that out real quick. But in addition, I've also developed a pretty bad vibration under braking, especially at highway speeds. The steering wheel shudders a little bit too, and you can feel it shakes the whole car. So I'm pretty confident that one or both of my front brake rotors has gotten warped. They are replaced brake rotors that I replaced ordering the Power Stop, or I can't remember what the name of the company is called, but you can pick the stuff up on Amazon. It's only about 6 or 8 months old since I've had them, and I don't drive very aggressively, and no reason why the things would have really overheated in that time. But regardless, they've warped. So I invested in some NAPA parts this time, hopefully a little bit better quality than you're going to find most other places. NAPA's pretty good. But anyway, I'll show you how to check that the rotors are out of round or not. We'll show you how to replace them. It's not that hard, and we'll move on from there. So saving yourself a couple $100 here, probably at least. As you can see, I got the tire off here while I wait for the oil to drain. So this is a manual transmission car, so I'm lucky in that respect. I just keep it in neutral. You want to be able to have it so that you can spin your rotor by hand. So you'll have to get it in neutral if you're in an automatic. Don't forget to, chock the wheels or whatever you need to do to make sure you're safe. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a dial indicator and measure the roundness or the out of roundness of this rotor. Now what you can do real quick too is the pads, by design, just lightly will rub on the rotor as you're driving the car with just no pressure, but you can kind of hear it drag a little bit. So if you spin it and you listen, you may hear differences in drag. That will also tell you potentially that the rotor's out of round. Let's see if we can hear anything. It doesn't seem like it's crooked or anything like that. So we'll go ahead, hook up the dial indicator. Got the dial indicator hooked up, and it reads about negative half a thou right now. You try to zero it, the thing's pretty flighty. So I'm not too concerned. I'm not looking for a discrete value here, but there is a spec, and that spec is 0.002, which is not a lot. You've got to, you can look that up. I was able to find that online. So we'll just rotate here, and we're gonna look for that needle to move. So 5 thousandths, 6, 7, 10. Yeah, about 10 thousandths or so. So that's not great. I'll double check that spec, but it's definitely a little bit out of round. So we'll go ahead and we'll replace that. We're going to do it. I was going to do it anyway. So now I'm going to got to disassemble the entire caliper, because the caliper is kind of what holds the rotor to the vehicle. It's not screwed or bolted in anyway to the hub. So there's a little bit more disassembly here than if you were just doing your brake pads. So we'll go ahead and I'll show you how that's done. All right, so here's the outside of the caliper. Right here is where the pads go. If you want to remove just that, there's two 14mm bolts, one up top here, one at the bottom, and then that would allow you to roll that whole thing out so you can get to your pads. The rest of this, the outside of it, like the carriage or whatever you want to call it, it's held in by two 17mm bolts at the top and the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the caliper section out and get it up and out of the way. And you want to watch this hose here, not to put any pressure on it so you don't break it or crack it, because that's your brake hose. You don't want to cause any damage there. And then once I get that out of the way, then I'll go and get this carrier off, or again, whatever you want to call it. And then that essentially will release the whole rotor. All right, got those two bolts out. Now this should just kind of pry right off here. All right, it does. And again, you want to be careful of that hose. I'm going to get a piece of wire here and kind of attach that. Now you'll see here the brake pads, if you can tell, they're pretty in really good shape because they're not very old. But I decided, because I'm replacing the whole thing, that I'm also going to replace those. So I just think that's a smart thing to do. All right, and you can see how much that rotor floats in there, but if you don't get this thing off, obviously, it's going to stay there. So again, two 17 millimeters. All right, and this rotor comes right off just like that. Now another potential concern here is that the hub is out of round, the hub itself. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do that. All right, so I kind of have this set up. Obviously, I'm concerned about running into the bolts here, so we'll see if I can get it. Yeah, it's going to hit. All right, maybe a thou. All right, so the hub looks good, not out of round, or at least not significantly, so that tells me that it's not the hub of the car, it's actually that rotor that's out of round. So now I'll go grab a new rotor here and put it up there. All right, these rotors are coated, which is nice. So that fits right on there. Beautiful thing. All right, so now we'll go ahead and get ready to do the pad swaps. All right, so another thing you want to check, these are what essentially allows this to float and allows the rotor to float. So as the brake pads wear, they'll still stay attached. So these are pins with little rubber boots on them. So I'm going to go ahead and take these pins, clean them up real well, and re-lubricate them. The boots, you want to check them to make sure that they're not torn or anything. These are in pretty good shape. Sometimes your brake pads will come with these boots and sometimes they won't. Also, these pins are different, so you want to make sure I'm only going to do one at a time. This is just a straight pin. You can see it's kind of gunky, so I'll get this cleaned up and I'll show you what it looks like on the other one to see that they're different. All right, I'm using this Stay Lube brake and caliper grease. I like the Stay Lube stuff. It's what I'm, all my lubricants for rebuilding the Triumph TR4 motor that I'm doing. So you don't be afraid of this stuff. It's not cheap, by the way. That tub was like 30 bucks. I don't know why this stuff is so expensive, but it is. So you want to get this nice and covered. Here's the other one. You can see on this one, it's got a little black band on it, like a little spring. There's also this little collar right here. That's where that little rubber boot kind of clips onto. So you want to make sure when you put that boot in that that's engaged so that the boot will expand. All right, so that looks good. You want to just give it a one over and make sure there's nothing else missing or dirty that you can clean up. The other thing is these little clips come out and put new ones in. That comes with the kit. There's 8 of them total. So again, you just want to make sure that as you do this, you don't, they are kind of handed in a way. So you want to make sure that you put them in the right way that they came out. So again, I'm only going to do one at a time. And I'm going to take a little wire brush in here and get that cleaned up. All right, we got those in. So now we are ready to bolt this thing back up. Before I do that, because now I'm going to trap the rotor, I am going to take some brake clean to the rotor and wipe it down. Especially the backside, since I'm not going to be able to get access to it, but you want to try to get this as clean as, as clean as you can get it. You don't want the brake pads getting contaminated. All right, so there's that. Now we can go ahead and bolt this guy back on. All right, you want to get them pretty tight. And then you want to make sure that when this rotor is flat, that it rotates. You got to push it, make sure that it's not hitting anything so that you don't have any interference there. All right, so next up, we'll put the pads on. They go in those fancy clips that you put in. All right, there's that one. Same thing on the other side. Now I got those pads in. That was a little tricky there. My light is also starting to fade a little bit, so I apologize that this isn't the best way to watch it. Sorry about that. So now we'll unhook the caliper. Probably I'm going to have to compress the piston. So you'll need a C-clamp for that. That guy right there, I'll have to get compressed a little bit. And I got a piece of bar stock in here just to give it even clamping force. Doesn't take much at all. Just all you're doing is pushing the fluid out, so you're not really fighting against anything. It's going back into the reservoir. Now I checked my reservoir, so I know, but you want to make sure if you've topped off your brake fluid to go and check your reservoir when you compress these, because you'll overflow it. So compress it all the way until it essentially stops. You don't want to press too hard because there is a rubber seal in there. You want to keep that thing in good shape. And I put just a little bit of lubricant on that seal and on the piston. Helps squeaking, I think, and also hopefully helps keep that seal in good shape. All right, so now we're going to head put that guy on. You want to keep an eye on your brake hose. Make sure that you're not twisting it and that you're going on the way that you came off. And when you put the tire on, that'll help, that'll help level that thing out. It's kind of floppy now because the tire's not on because the brakes aren't pressed. But you want to make sure that it sounds pretty good. A little bit of rubbing like you would expect. I'm going to go ahead and button this one up. A little bit more brake clean on here. All right, so that's that. That's how you do it. So now I'll put the tire back on, go around, do the other side, finish up my oil change, and I'll let you know how bad it is on the other side. Well, no surprises on the driver's side. It was just, it was actually a little bit more out of round. Not a lot, but enough that it's still out of spec. So we're gonna get the tire on. Can't forget to put oil back in the car. That would suck. Get it out of here and go take it for a spin. So one thing you wanna remember is you push those pistons all the way back in, so with the first couple times you touch the brake, you're not going to have any brake there as the slack gets taken up. So don't go driving off real quick and having to come to a stop right away without pumping the brakes a couple times and making sure that that you got some pedal. So otherwise, that's it. So this all of these brakes, including the grease, is about 200 bucks. You can get them comparable, with the pads. So you take the grease away, you're looking at $170, $180. And simple tools that I will list in the description that you need, and not too bad of a job that they'll charge you probably 500 bucks or so if you took it to an auto mechanic. It is brakes, so you got to have a little bit of a gut check with what you're doing, but I think you can do it yourself. So that's all I've got. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Cheers.